My name is Jennifer Corcoran, my son Matthew Helton. So we started our major advocating in 2014 when Matthew was 14 years old. And I had been changing him in the back of our van for many years, just kind of doing what I thought we needed to do. And then 2014, I thought, well, this isn't really working so well. We need a law, I guess. And being naive as I was, I thought, figure out how you do that, do it, and we can move on. I was a teacher at the Dayton Regional STEM School at the time, and my colleague was the government teacher, so I went to her and said, how do I make a law? And she started to tell me, and she says, you know, this covers all of our standards. We took it to our students, so we took it to the government students. And for 2 years, our students worked with Senator Peggy Lehner to write and testify for 3 different bills within the Senate. And it was an experience that was just amazing. Did a lot for a lot of people, but the first roadblock, I guess you could say, that we came up against was I started to realize you go and you talk to the legislators and you tell them about this need, which obviously we all know is a definite need. It's certainly not a luxury. And they sympathize and they do nothing. And that was my first time in the advocacy world thinking, wow, okay, I just didn't think it would be this difficult. This is something that everybody needs every day. So we continued to push. However, our bills were failing, and I was moving to another school, people were moving. But one thing that I learned was that we had a large group, we had a community, and that is what we needed. And we at least got the word out, we gained some folks, but things kind of fizzled. And another thing that I found out in advocating is that it takes a lot of time. And as a mom of 3 boys and needing to work full time and take care of a home, I didn't have the time. So I took a very long break and just kind of tried to do what we could do. Fast forward to 2019, we're in a 5K to help raise money for Owen's Place, and Representative Rick Perellis comes over to us, introduces himself, and I find myself talking to him about this need, and he says, you know, I'm very interested in this. And it sparked a little bit of a flame in me again, and I said, you know, I really have got to get back to this. So I called Senator Lehner's office, and she immediately had us go to Columbus, and we rewrote the bill. And she proposed it. He proposed it in the House, so we had concurrent bills, which was like the best thing that could ever happen. We were so excited, and I thought maybe this time this is what's really going to take us where we need to go. Well, that was 2019. So 2020 hit, and then March hit, and everything just kind of died. And we knew that. We obviously, when the times happened, that this bill wasn't going to move forward. And so I thought, well, we're kind of at a standstill again. In the meantime, I had noticed these folks on Facebook, Changing Spaces. It's a national campaign, and it's basically almost all moms like me who just spend their time advocating for these tables. And I was trying to get involved, but again, we've got that time issue. So when the bill died, what happened was representatives from a group from the International Code Council had reached out to Senator Lehner's office, and they were actually opposing our bill. But they were saying, we have a better solution. We want to work, and we want to write code, and we want to write specifications, and we want to take it to the International Code Council and get it in the International Building Code. Okay, so she put them in touch with me, so that was the beginnings of our work with the ICC. So for 1.5 years, we worked on writing code, and I was fortunate enough to be on the committee that wrote the specifications for the tables. And so I can tell you there was a lot of research, a lot of work that went into those specifications, trying to reach out to as many different people as we could so that we could find out how could these tables work for the most amount of people. In the meantime, Dr. Combs had been in and out way back to when we were doing the bill. We had been in contact, and she was very supportive of what we were doing. She reached out to me, and I talked to her about what was happening with the International Code Council, and we needed to testify. So she and others from the Board of Montgomery County Developmental Disability Services testified with us. We testified. There was literally a person on the council who was in tears because he had a young son that would need these tables, and they unanimously voted to include our information in the international code with a little bit of tweaking. So we went back to the drawing table, and that's another thing that I've learned a lot here, is that this stuff does not happen quickly. Even when you gather your folks and they say, yes, we're gonna move, it still takes a while. So it is going to be in International Building Code 2024, beginning in January. In the meantime, I started to pick up with changing spaces again. I met my co-lead, Kim Bolter. She's in the Columbus area, and she is like the Energizer Bunny. She reached out to me, and I needed that. I needed somebody next to me just pushing. Just trying to keep up with her was exhausting, but it is exactly what I needed. And so we kicked off Changing Spaces Ohio, and our advocacy was actually coming to fruition. In the meantime, I then started working with the Montgomery County Board of Developmental Disability Services as a program consultant. And Dr. Combs had written for a request for American Rescue Plan Act funds through Montgomery County and received them in order to install universal changing tables in the area. So part of my job is I got to work with how do we make that happen. And it's amazing to me how much you learn, how much you think you know, but every day and every person that you talk to, you learn something new. And just when I say, well, boy, we have a lot of needs, so I get it, I know what's there, I don't. I'm still learning every day. I meet new people that have new needs or new ideas every day. So then with my job with the county board, I was able to speak to all of the superintendents across the county. And when that happened, the state, sorry, and all the counties across the state. So when that happened, we started to see the other county boards trying to do what our county board was doing. And it hit me, wow, that we need people. So now there's no way that Kim and I, or even just our county board right here in Montgomery County, could make this change across Ohio without having our allies and without bringing folks on. So now other county boards are doing what we have done. They're purchasing mobile tables. We're creating or changing table loan programs, looking at mobile changing units. So it was gathering all the folks that made it so that we could actually get somewhere. So it's been a very long run. It's taken a lot of persistence. But what I have found is it's the people that I have been able to work with. It's the proper ears that hear it, that have the ability to make a change. And it's taken us this long to get it, but right now Ohio is in the forerunner. I mean, I'm working with folks across the country, and the talk is Ohio is in the forefront and making the change. So it's been an excellent experience. It's a learning experience every day. And how do I see these making a difference? So in all of this, we have also started, my co-lead and I, Kim and I, have started Inspired Access Foundation, which is a nonprofit, so that we can start to raise funds to improve accessibility. So what's happening with this table idea is it started with one issue for accessibility, and what I'm finding is it's now opening up to all the issues of accessibility, and it's causing not only us but the folks that we're touching to try to reach that goal. How is it that we make our communities accessible to everybody, because we have people missing, a lot of people missing. I remember when Matthew was really little and I would take him out into the community, I said, where are all the people like Matthew? Why don't I see people like Matthew? And it really perplexed me. And then as he's grown, I've understood a little bit better. It's not accessible. there aren't even restrooms for us to use. That's a pretty big issue. But it takes the voices, it takes us to speak about it and for people to listen. And that's what's happened. So as these tables are being put into businesses and organizations, what I'm seeing is people taking a hold of accessibility in general and trying to bring folks into our communities. And my hope, and I predict that will continue.
So Montgomery County Board of Developmental Disabilities, just want to make sure everybody's aware that a developmental disability is one that is typically diagnosed between birth and the age of 22. So it's often a disability that someone is born with, and they're diagnosed usually pretty early on. So our Board of Developmental Disabilities, we serve 5,000 people in Montgomery County. Typically, it's about 6% of the population will have some form of a developmental disability, and now they're estimating it's closer to 10%. So the numbers are rising, and out of that, we serve 1% of that number, so about 5,000 people. And as I loved the question, and I'm going to share several really fast examples. So with our Board of Developmental Disabilities, we set a goal to be a workplace that could encourage people with different life challenges to work with us and to have a life-work balance. So we right now have a very flexible work schedule, 7 days a week, any hours of the day based on needs. And then we telework. Most of our work is done remotely. And we're going to work on some hard numbers, but our estimate is that about a fourth of our workforce either has some form of disability, they have a child with a disability or developmental disability, or they're caring for aging parents. And with this flexibility and this telework approach, it's not requiring people to use vacation time unless they're going on vacation. And they can use a lot of flex time like that. And that's always been a dream of mine, to be able to make an example and to prove it, and then to hold it up so that other companies could maybe use it as a way to do business if it was applicable. So a few quick examples. I've been in the field about 20 years. First event I went to was a dance. I walked in. I was talking to the staff because what else would I do? It was a dance and I hated dances. I don't know, did anyone like dances in high school or anything? I did not. A young woman came up to me and asked me if I was going to dance or just stand there. And I said, I'm just gonna stand here. I don't dance. And she took my hand and said, yes, you do. And she took me out on the floor and I tried to dance a little bit, and she said, you're a good dancer. And that was my first interaction in the field with somebody with a developmental disability, and I will remember that forever. I felt so good about myself when I left that night. I could dance. And I have found over the years, the more I interact with people in our field, the better I feel. And sure, some have extreme challenges, extreme needs. They also have so much patience and joy and happiness and gratefulness, and it's always a blessing. While at Licking County, working with providers there, I decided to give out turkeys one Thanksgiving. Did anyone ever see WKRP in Cincinnati? I didn't think about it when I did it. And I said, everyone who was disabled, who visited so many places, got a free frozen turkey, and I'd bring it to them. You never think about how many are 75 frozen turkeys, that you have to deliver out of your, hatchback. So I was delivering turkeys all over Licking County, these frozen turkeys. And I only did it that one time. And whenever I would deliver it, it was like Publishers Clearinghouse. Yes, I got the turkey, and so excited over the turkey. And another story I'll always remember, one young man raised the turkey over his head like the Heisman Trophy, turkey, turkey, turkey. He runs inside chanting, turkey, turkey, turkey. And I'm walking out to my car, and he comes running up behind me. And he said, hey, do you have somewhere to go for Thanksgiving? And I think of how many times in our moments of joy and excitement would we have the compassion to say, hey, what about you? Are you going to be okay? And I was superintendent in Gallia County, where we were transitioning a workshop, which Montgomery did years before, and that means to make it not a government entity, but a private provider group, and usually smaller. And I decided to meet with all the adults with developmental disabilities that were served to brainstorm. What would they like to do every day if they could pick anything? Here were their two big things. One was in Gallia. That's where Bob Evans is from. It's farmland. And they said they had a great concern for aging farmers. And a lot of young people were moving away, and could they help out the farmers? I was thinking of go get pizza, go bowling. They literally, and once the guy said it, they were like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then somebody else said, what about the garden club? Those women are a little older and they can't lift all those things down and that's what they did. They became the group helping the garden club and the aging farmers. And those were the two main things that came into their mind. We did buy several homes, closed a large ICF in Gallia County. That meant buying about 18 homes, which Gallia only has 2,000 people. Gallipolis, so it was a lot of homes in Gallipolis. And moving people from institutions into homes, which was always very exciting. Many of them had never had their own window before. Their very own window, their very own bedroom door, their own room. They wanted a wallet to be able to walk to the store. Just very basic items brought just so much joy. Just very, very exciting. I want to share just one more quick story. My aunt passed away, I guess about a month ago. And as her last big stand for female equality, she asked me to do the eulogy because in the church she goes to, a woman had never spoken there. And so she decided that that's what she would do. And so I did the eulogy. People were saying, oh, that was so great. And then I realized they were saying that not because it was really that great, but they couldn't believe that I, as a woman, was able to say those words from a microphone, that they really maybe had never heard that happen before. A couple weeks later, we were at a big team meeting, and we've started hiring people with developmental disabilities to be county employees as part of our team. And at this all-staff training, we had three staff people there with developmental disabilities. During the training, one of them raised his hand to say something, and it really wasn't a kind of place where people were talking, and I thought, oh no, you're like, what's he gonna say? And he stood up and said something pretty profound. He said, a child allowed to dream can grow into an adult with a vision. And I know we all just kind of paused. And I thought, wow. It immediately took me back to the eulogy, Wouldn't it be great in 20 years, maybe not even 20 years, in 10 years, that wouldn't be shocking? That it would just be our coworker sharing something just amazing. Just like it shouldn't have been shocking for me to be able to speak. And it just really made me realize, we're getting there. We still have a little ways to go. And I'm sorry, I just saw one more sticky note. I did want to share during the pandemic, I was very proud of our staff, those that we serve. We had 150 people with developmental disabilities that were essential workers that did not want to stop working during the pandemic. They wanted to provide those vital services in their community. And the last story I'm going to tell is about a young woman, Katie. People can schedule Zoom meetings with me if they can track down my secretary, and she scheduled one during the pandemic. And here's what she said. She said, Dr. Combs, I just wanted to see how you're doing. My mom didn't even do that, She goes, I know you're under a lot of stress. Are you doing okay? And if anything, the more we can integrate, the more we can include, just the more wonderful our world will be. It really will be.
All right, John, coming to you. What role do businesses, local governments, and institutions play in promoting disability inclusion? Are there any notable examples of organizations that have demonstrated outstanding commitment to this cause from your seat?
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective because it's like we talked about codes and standards, setting those codes and standards. Those codes and standards are only as good as the enforcement. And so we go and change these things and get these codes and standards written and integrated and put in the books. And then at the end of the day, those are only good if at the end of the day there's building inspectors in each municipality, architects in each municipality, engineers in each municipality that first are educated on them and second, enforce them. And that we don't allow politics to undermine the codes and standards that have been worked so hard to get in those books in the first place. It's sometimes frustrating when a business owner contributes to a campaign and gets some political leverage and all of a sudden they go to build their new building and that ramp's gonna be really expensive, or boy, that changing table's gonna be really expensive, and what can we do to kind of get around these standards? Because we don't want to kind of deal with that. It's too much, or whatever the hurdles are. Or really, they don't feel like putting in the effort to look for the funding, look for grants, look for opportunities to help. They just kind of want to avoid it if we can, so they'll look for ways around it. And then it undermines the work that's been done by people like Jennifer, who've worked so hard to get those things in place. And we've heard all the work that goes into them, and then it stops at the city level. So it's really important for us as community members to make it very clear that accessibility is important, and that our local government, our local community needs to hire people that know the ADA standards, knows the building code when it comes, especially in areas where it comes to accessibility. And so we're not having to go back and retrofit. And we can get in on the planning stage and in the architectural stage of these new buildings and make them part of the building before it even breaks ground. And that's where I think it's where the rubber meets the road, is at your local government level. And that's where we can be advocates as members of the community of why first of it's important for us, and that, like you said, you don't see people with disabilities because the place isn't accessible. And that's the cycle that we get into. It's inaccessible, so people with disabilities don't go. And then people say, oh, I don't see people with disabilities, we don't need to make it accessible. And it becomes this cycle. where all of a sudden we make it accessible, and all of a sudden people with disabilities come out thinking, oh, I'm welcome here. I have a place here. They care enough to make an adaptation for me. I'm going to show up. And all of a sudden there's a lot more of us out there than we realized. And I think that that cycle is what we get into, that it really undermines a lot of the work that people are trying to do, because it's just a lot of effort that it takes to make it accessible. So I know for me, I look at communities, for example, like this city of Kettering, they actually have a full-time person on staff for inclusion and compliance. We have a compliance and inclusion manager, and their job is to adapt programs, adapt things to make sure that the citizens have accessibility to any of the programs offered. And we'll go in there and take care of things that need to be taken care of. And I think that's not as common as it should be for local communities to have that kind of an advocate on staff to look for unique opportunities to make things accessible. And and that's just an example that I'm aware of, and I'm sure that there's other communities that have those. That's one that I'm personally aware of, and I just think that it's an area where there's plenty of room for growth, as has been verbalized tonight, and I think that us as community members can be advocates for those that we may not be seeing because the area that they want to go to just aren't welcoming to them and aren't accessible, and sometimes just the littlest change can completely change the accessibility for a whole subset of people that we don't even see. So.
All right, so this last question is for all of our panelists. Jennifer, we'll start with you. In 30 to 60 seconds, can you share one key message or takeaway that you'd all like for our audience to remember and act upon after this discussion to contribute to a more inclusive and...
I think community teams, that's what we need to do. We are part of a community. We are all citizens. We have rights and we have responsibilities. And it is our responsibility as a community to make sure that we are including the folks around us. We have to listen and we have to act. We can't listen and then push it aside. We just can't do it. We have to understand every person is different. Everybody has different needs. And some folks share what those needs are and some folks don't. And that's okay, that's their choice. But some folks don't because they're tired. It is not an easy life. I don't think any life is easy. I think it'd be really boring if it was easy. But it takes a lot of time and energy. And so it's as people who live together, we have to look for the other people in our communities. We have to listen. We have to stop the judgment. We have to be open to problem solving. We could not be where we are at all by doing this on our own. I would have never imagined we'd be where we are today. Starting with the Code Council and working with the county board has taken us in a direction I honestly never thought that we would get to. When we started, I said, Matthew, I don't think we are going to have a community in which we can easily go out into and have it be accessible within our lifetimes. But we're going to fight for it. It's going to be there eventually. And in the last year and a half, I've said, Matthew, we might see it. We are getting there. And why? Because of the community, because of the people that are coming together, listening and being problem solvers. And I urge all of you to do the same. Everybody has something to give here. Everybody. There have been so many ideas that have come up that I would have never thought of. I've come up with ideas that I never thought I would because of working with people around me. I think it'd be a very scary life to not think that I had a community or team to support me. I wouldn't get very far. And I would hope that the folks around me know that I'm there to support them. So please think about community, and when you don't see people, search for them. Because they're out there.
So a lot of this revolves around communication, education, meeting people, just talking about it. That's literally a first step, is talking about it, meeting one another. So if you're part of a church, a social club, a garden group, I don't know, anything, and you want to invite me to come hang out or speak, or I would be honored. And I had the joy of doing that a lot in Gallia County. I even went to some family reunions. So just feel free. It really is the way that you start learning about it and learning about needs. And I mean, we never know what we might need in our future. As we age at home, as we get older, it will be wonderful to have the universal changing tables in place, to have accessible transportation, ramps, all of those kind of things. It's very difficult to get around with limited mobility. And education, talking about it, meeting people with different challenges, and then learning, and then just figuring out how to come together to solve a network. So just let me know.
I always encourage people, if you see something, say something. So if you kind of look through the lens when you go into somewhere, let's just say I am vertically challenged and I'm not able to reach high, or I have a mobility disability, I'm not able to walk. How am I going to get to different areas of the facility that I'm in? And if you see areas where there's voids in accessibility, or there's hurdles, or there's obstacles for a community that you're not seeing there because it's not accessible, say something. Say, I've noticed that you don't have a ramp out front, or you have those 2 steps out front that I don't see an accessible entrance to your location. Or in your restroom, your accessible stall is there, but the door swings the wrong way. That makes it inaccessible. And just bring it to their attention, because a lot of times business owners or someone that manages a facility, they're just not thinking about that. They're thinking about their business. They're thinking about staying in business and staying afloat and just trying to survive the next fiscal year. And sometimes we just need to bring it to their attention and make them aware of it. And I just looked for that opportunity wherever I can, just to make you aware that entrance that is accessible, you just made it inaccessible with your displays. Or that if your counter, if you maybe lowered it a little bit, or just looking for ways to educate business owners and business managers and things like that of opportunities that sometimes are fairly inexpensive. It's just a matter of making them aware of it.
So I work for Universal Changing Tables, but another huge initiative is employment and obviously inclusion in our communities. And I think that everybody should have opportunity to have a job. And if you see Matthew, you go, well, what job can Matthew have? And that's, as his mom, that's what I've been doing. What can we do? Okay, come on, let's use the switch, because if we use a switch, we could make something activate, and then maybe we could work somewhere in some type of production. Well, he doesn't want to use a switch. And just like anybody, we look at, what do I like to do? What am I good at? And that's what I will do. So I have been searching and thinking, I was going to open a business, and Matthew could be the greeter, and he'd have to, he doesn't speak, but he loves to be around people. His quality of life is to be included and around folks and being a part of what's going on. And it was through my work with the board and doing the advocating and starting to do conferences and presentations, all of a sudden it hit me. And he has a job. He's had it since he was 14. He's an advocate. The bills that we had in the Senate and the House were called Matthew's bill. He was the center of that. When we took it to the students, the first thing I did was brought Matthew in and introduced him and brought others in from different organizations so that the kids could understand what is the challenge here. And so that's when I said, Matthew has a job, he's advocate. So in Changing Spaces, he has his business card, he has his name badge. When we go to conferences, Matthew goes. When we do something like this, he's with us. He's really crooked tonight because he got a new wheelchair, and obviously it's not great. So we'll get this adjusted
And
on
a lot
Friday.
of the conferences we go to are days.
Oh, yeah.
And days long. And it makes a significant impact having Matthew there. And it's a lot of representatives and politicians or business owners have said, like, what an impact you as a mom having you there and Matthew. And I believe that's kind of been the tipping point.
Absolutely. And that's so everybody should have a role, and you should understand your role, and the community should understand your role. And that's what Matthew is doing. He is an advocate. And it's been life altering for us. It truly has. It's been the first time in our lives that I feel like I can work and bring in the money so that we can pay the bills, but we get to advocate every day. I tell my friends, I said, I almost feel like I'm retired because I get to do what I want to do every day. And I get the flexibility, the ability to go out and advocate. If I wasn't doing this job, I would be working a full-time job and then trying to do the advocating on the side. I can tell you with the advocating, I'm starting at 7 in the morning and I may be finishing at 10 at night. But Matthew is with me. It's part of his service plan for employment. And I am carrying out that goal with him. He goes to his day program, but at least 1 to sometimes 3 or 4 days a week, he's with me. We're going into place organizations to do assessments to see if they could install a universal changing table, but he does. He makes the impact because we need to hear from those who need it, and Matthew needs it. And it's important for people in the community to see this guy's worth it. He's important, just like you are, and I am.